made a choice to spend $100 on the Ultimate Edition of the newest Naruto game, and today we're gonna go over why that may or may not have been a terrible decision. So today we're here to talk about Ultimate Ninja Storm Connections and figure out what the deal is with it. And this one has the fan base a little bit divided, with plenty of fans calling it a glorified Storm 4 DLC, while others are also saying that it's one of the best Storm games released to this day. Well, I'm here to get down to the truth of what this game really is, and of course, if you agree or disagree, you can let me know about it all in the comments. Because I do think the answer isn't quite as simple as some people may think, and after a dozen hours, even I have some mixed opinions about it. And before we jump into the newest mechanics and combat features, I do want to talk a bit about the two story modes we have to work with here. And I wasn't expecting much since Generations and Revolution didn't really have a beefy story either, but a lot of this really does feel lazy to me. First, we have the history mode, which starts off at the final battle between Naruto and Sasuke, and that sets the mode up as being a retelling of their story told by Hagoromo. And it's not really what I was hoping for, but again, I wasn't really expecting much. You have 8 chapters going from the beginning of Naruto and leading to the end of Shippuden. 2 of the chapters are for OG Naruto, with the other 6 being for the rest of Shippuden. And I thought it was odd that they didn't put anything else for Boruto in here too, but I guess it makes sense when it's focused on Naruto and Sasuke's story. Each chapter can last anywhere from 30 minutes to over an hour, depending on if you do or don't skip through any dialogue. I played this at first just to get myself back into the swing of the controls, but other than that, it was pretty boring to sit through. It would have been nice if they did add in more fights between other characters, but unfortunately they didn't. Except for a few fights where you do get to play as Jiraiya, Itachi, Hashirama, and Ashura, all of which of course being connected to both Naruto and Sasuke. Within the history mode, there's some sections that only exist to skim through arcs, and they do one of the most annoying things to retell the story. When you do play episodes that include fights, Hagoromo will narrate, and you'll get at least some voice acting to go with the slideshows that we get.
I'll never forgive you!
But the parts here that don't have fights are just straight up slideshows with text on the screen and no voice acting. And unless you're dying to read through this, I would say that these parts can just be skipped. Like, yeah, you do get titles for watching those parts, but if you just skip right past it, you'll still get the titles anyway. It's kind of sad seeing them take this approach, since you can tell they saved a lot of money by reusing bits and pieces from old games and hot gluing them together. Because when the first info came out about this game, many people were asking, is this going to be all of the games mashed together? Even if they took every single fight and just found a way to string them all together and put them into this game, that would have been cool. But no, they didn't do that at all. Instead, we get a bare bones story mode that is only a few hours long and doesn't really do a lot. If you wanted the real Storm experience with all the cinematics and detailed storytelling, you got the wrong game. And that's fine if you really don't care, since it's not like anything here was going to be new to most of us anyway. I just wish they didn't limit the whole thing to 2 characters, because it cuts out so many fights that should have been here. For a game that's supposed to be a celebration of the Storm series, it does fall pretty flat. But hey, at least they did add an episode reaction feature so you can share your feelings with other players online. If you actually care about that, I guess. But hey, they do pay you for reacting, so that's something. Gives you some more currency to use on accessories and titles that you probably don't care about in the first place. My thoughts on the history mode is that it's fine to have the option of it, but unless you care about getting all the ninja info cards and titles, you can probably skip this and you won't be missing anything. It's not like any characters are locked behind the story, so this is just here to be here. Not to mention that some of these fights and the stories also end up being in the Boruto story mode, so what's the point? But now let's talk about that and see if it was worth buying this game. The main story mode is a special story created for this game, and it focuses on Boruto and friends. So in other words, they made even more Boruto filler, because of course the filler in the anime just wasn't enough for everyone. The basic plot is that a new VR game comes out and a lot of people start playing it. And if you know anything about Sword Art Online, or even more recently Digital Circus, then you know that's not the best idea. While they don't end up getting trapped inside this place, it does lead to a lot of situations connecting to the new villain and his plot to destroy everything. The big bad villain is called Mertz, and he is upset about how peaceful things are. He's working to bring a world of conflict back instead of the world of talk no jutsu that Naruto brought after the war. He's inspired by the same ideals that Pain had about destroying the ninja world and is carrying out those plans in his own way. We also get to meet a new character, Nanashi, who we see as a guide within the VR game. She ends up having a really interesting story herself, and we see the impact that Boruto ends up having on her. Because just like his dad, he's going to bring other people around him joy and keep making those friendships. We get some touching moments with a few characters, both old and even new to this story, and overall I'd say it's not terrible. Now I wouldn't go out and buy the game just to play this story mode, since it's only about 8 hours long and half of that is going to be cutscenes and dialogue. So if you aren't thrown into a fight, you'll be sitting there and watching them talk for about 10 minutes straight. It's great for those who want some deeper storytelling, but if y'all just wanted the fights, then that's where the online comes in and where we get into the newest additions for combat. I talked about this months ago when Connections was first announced, but normally there's a break between the numbered Storm games, like us getting Revolution and Generations between Storm 2, 3, and 4 being released. While these aren't talked about as much, they hold a very important place in the series. While games like Storm 3 and 4 have these in-depth story modes and over-the-top cinematics, the games like Revolution and Generations fall short of that. Instead, those are the games where CyberConnect 2 really polishes the formula and focuses on experimenting with mechanics. You know, the real reason why fighting game fans enjoy their fighting games. So my thought was that Connections would be the same sort of thing, tossing the deep story modes to the side so they can create something to hold over the fans until the real Storm 5 eventually releases. So the question is, do I think that's what we got here? It's obvious that this game exists to give fans something to play with while the next game is being cooked up, so I'll say they did a pretty good job with that. The parts of combat that weren't broken before have only been changed to either give you more options in battle or make things easier. Something as simple as being able to cancel your combos into a special move adds extra levels of detail that the fans can have fun playing around with for a good while. Hell, when I started figuring out how the new bounce mechanic worked, it was something I wanted to experiment with and add into combos as much as I could. And of course I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I'm some top tier player, of course, but it's great wanting to see cool stuff happen and now having more ways to make that cool stuff happen. If all you want to do is get online and do some casual or ranked matches, I'm sure you're going to have a blast with it. But the only problem now is that matchmaking isn't a thing just yet, so you won't be able to play with your friends directly. This is the one part where I really think they should have delayed this game. A major reason that people play any fighting game is to go toe-to-toe with friends, and these days you're most likely doing that online. Sure, you can do couch co-op, but that won't help when the dudes online are talking trash about who can beat who in a fight. Even for the content creators that you love, you won't be able to see them duke it out until they eventually add this feature. And by that time, the game might actually die off in popularity. So if you're only interested in playing against random sweats, casuals, or just straight up spammers, then you came to the right place. Otherwise, this is one area where I would heavily suggest that you wait until matchmaking is added. Otherwise, this is only going to feel like a half-baked game to most of you. And for all I know, they might have added matchmaking before I even upload this video, but the point is, why would you release it without it? I did see a couple of videos where people did find their friends, but it was only out of sheer luck. Some of those people did have early access to the game, so at most only a few hundred people were online at the time compared to now. Hopefully they get this added soon, because it's really dumb that they released it without that feature. But another major change is the addition of a simple control mode, which makes the game a lot more accessible to new players. And that's something that you have to expect from fighting games these days, and a lot of them do have this option, like with Street Fighter 6. You might think it's dumb to have this in the Storm series, since I feel like a 2-year-old can play this without needing to think much. It's not something I would complain about much, since it's just making things more accessible, and I can respect that. But overall, I gotta say, it's hard to justify spending money on this at full price. I will still put a few of the new features on screen so you can judge those other changes for yourself, like having the 10 new characters, a second ninjutsu option, unlimited ninja tools, and over 5 new maps. And yes, most of these changes are minor, so it's up to you to decide if you're willing to jump back in to try it. So to answer the question of whether this was worth me buying the $100 $100 Ultimate Edition, I would say hell nah. At least now I do have the season pass for the next 5 characters that are going to be released, and I got a couple extra cosmetics too, but even at the regular $60 price tag, I'd say to save your money for now. Storm Connections is a disappointment when it comes to the overall package. And no, it's not because I spent the $100 on it. I'll take that L and I'll roll with it. But it feels like the features added here should have been saved for a full game with more to it than just recycled fights and a short new filler story. You know, and no matchmaking. But when they do eventually add more to the online modes, this is going to be a solid game just for the battle mechanics alone. But I can see why a lot of the fans have wanted to boycott this one, since I think CyberConnect 2 should have done more to make sure this release was polished the right way. If you do want the full story experience, then you'd be better off buying the Storm Legacy Collection instead, because then you'd get 4 whole games with all the plot that you could ever want. Granted, you won't get these new features and mechanics, but at least you can play it online with friends. So it might be worth waiting for a sale if you haven't gotten it already. But let me know what you guys think about Storm Connections in the comments. Do you think the new features alone were worth a full game? And let me know if you would rather have another Naruto fighting game besides Storm. The community seems to have some Storm fatigue, and at this point I can't even blame them for feeling that way. But I would love to hear what you guys think. Subscribe for more videos just like this one, and I'll see you all in the next one.